Where are we meeting the men that don't suck? Where are we finding them?
Where are all the good men?
Where are all the good men at?
Where have all the good men gone?
Where are all the good men?
Where do I find the nice guy that wants a simple, healthy relationship?
Where are the good men at? Where they at? How do I meet them? Where do I go?
Girls, where the fuck are you finding good men?
Yo, what is going on, guys? Got a video for you here today that a lot of you have been sending me, and it's titled "What's Really Behind the Lack of Good Men" by a woman called Kate Ann Michelle. So let's just jump right into it and see what's happening here.
You want a good man, but ask yourself this: would the man that you want the woman that you've become? 63% of men under the age of 30 are single. But that's not the whole story. In fact, 61% of men ages 18 to 29 say they want to be in a committed relationship, compared to only 50% of women. Yet everywhere we turn, there's a woman who's asking, why does it feel like there are no good men left? Maybe it's not that they're gone. Maybe they're just done with the rules of a rigged game. This video is for the women who want a good man, who may not even be aware of the pitfalls of their own perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors that push good men away instead of pulling them in.
I mean, let's be honest, guys. A lot of these women who say that they want a good man, they actually don't, right? They just spend their entire lives chasing bad boys anyway. Like, men understand this, okay? Men understand this from a young age. You go out there, you do all of the correct things for women, and they treat you like dirt the entire time, and then they'll sit there and say that they want a good man. This video is probably not going to be viewed by a whole lot of women. And if they do, it's certainly not to fix their own behaviors. Like, again, a lot of these women don't actually give a damn. They're not interested in changing themselves or becoming a better person to attract a good man in the first place.
And this video is for the men who are overburdened with the dialogue that their masculinity is somehow toxic, that we don't need them, when in fact, we do. This is for those of you who believe in commitment, love, and the depth of what is real over what just feels good right now. And to be transparent, this won't be an easy video, and I will be the first to admit that I don't have this all figured out. However, I do believe that there are fundamental flaws that have eroded the very fabric of relationships. And by the time you watch this video all the way to the end, you'll understand exactly how we got here, and how the things that you believe are in your best interest may in fact be harming you. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. It started as a fight for rights, and it morphed into a war on roles. And now, it's a religion without redemption. This book is one that I recommend everybody reads. It reveals the esoteric and spiritual roots of feminism as rebellion. And not just against men, but against nature and order itself. In the effort to see this from an alternative perspective to the narrative that you have probably been fed about feminism, I ask you to keep an open mind to what I'm about to share with you. I'm going to dive into each wave and show you how this movement has shifted drastically, potentially radically, over time.
I mean, I'm going to stop it here for a second. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, it's just modern day feminism that's the problem. Didn't you know there are 3 waves, and the first one was really important because of this reason and that reason? And to all of that, guys, you know, sorry to be crude here, but I simply don't care. I don't care how it started. At the end of the day, this is something that has not been good for relationships. It has not been good for realistically anybody, both men and women. This is something that has done incredible amounts of damage to women. And you might say, well, women needed it in the first place because they wanted to join the workforce, right? Here's the thing, guys. Honestly, a lot of the women these days, they don't want to work. They've realized that they've been scammed. Okay, previously, for example, you could have a man and he would be able to take care of the whole family. Okay, you'd be able to support a family off of a man's income. Nowadays, guys, you know, we have women with all of their rights, and they have the ability to work their jobs, and look how that's worked out. The government can now tax twice as many people. Women basically have to work in order to in order to contribute properly to a household. Like, trying to run a household on a single person income these days is incredibly difficult. So you know, a lot of the women who were like, well, we needed it for our rights. We needed to have bank accounts and get jobs and all of this stuff. A lot of those very same women, you know, they reach 35 and they're like, wait a minute, I got scammed. I don't want to work. I want to be able to have a family. I want to be able to have a man look after me. You know, again, I don't really care much for the waves. I think it's all stupid. I really do. Now, this is what women have fought for. So, you know, very strong, very empowered. They can go work their entire lives if that's what they want. I don't particularly care. But the women have gotten scammed as well as the men. I don't really care what wave it is.
There are many narratives and beliefs held that feminism is either the best thing that has ever happened or the absolute worst. But unlike other waves that came, the first wave of feminism was focused on maintaining the order and nurture between men and women. The pioneers in this first wave, like Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Stanton, and Sojourner Truth, framed their arguments not in terms of overthrowing the patriarchy or embracing this spiritual rebellion, but in terms of moral responsibility, justice, and civic duty. Many were abolitionists and temperance advocates, campaigning against things like slavery, domestic abuse, and alcohol abuse, which were destroying families. And I personally see this as an era where women were fighting for family, for order, not against it. First wave feminists sought basic legal protection and recognition, the right to vote, property rights for married women, access to education, and legal recourse in abusive marriages.
Okay, so let me just stop here for a second. Okay, let me jump into this. Right, so what they wanted, first wave, and this is the wave we're supposed to believe was all about family, according to this woman. The right to vote. Now, guys, I'm not a major historian or anything like this, but from my understanding, the reason why men were given the right to vote originally and not women was because, one, we were eligible for conscription, so we had to fight for our country. Second of all, we were majority taxpayers, not women, and things like this. So, you know, you have these women who are saying, oh, we want the right to vote, but at least previously, the right to vote actually came with responsibilities. So, you know, that's kind of the first thing there is, I don't know, they were all pushing for the ability to vote. But again, these are people who were not being actively conscripted, who were probably not really paying taxes at the time, and so on. Second thing, property rights for married women, access to education, legal recourse in abusive marriages. I mean, here's the thing, right? Is a lot of this stuff, particularly this last one here, legal recourse in abusive marriages. I mean, we've seen how this one's played out, okay? Like, you have women these days, guys, who they say, oh, we need to have no-fault divorce because what if the woman's in a terrible marriage? Let's be honest. How many women do you know, guys, who have left good men in marriages or otherwise, and their claim, the reason why they've done this supposedly is because the man was so terrible, he was abusive. This is basically a cover so that women can leave and take resources from men. You know, oh, I need to have the ability to leave if I'm in a terrible relationship. And while I do empathize with women who are genuinely victims of very bad things inside of marriages, what this has essentially done is just given the ability for women to leave men who they were supposed to have committed their entire life to, mind you, for any reason because they feel like it. You know, guys, like you talk to the average, well, the majority of guys watching this video right now, if you've had a girlfriend in the past or something like this, or married or whatever, when your relationship ends, there's a good chance you have been called a very bad man, even if you're a good man. So like, I don't buy this crap, guys. I really don't. Oh, we need legal recourse for the terrible marriages. Okay, what was the actual result of that? A huge amount of women leaving marriages because they felt like it and to try and take the man's resources. So no, I don't think this whole first thing was all about family at all. I'll be honest with you. Let's continue.
Sex-based differences, but about correcting clear injustices, ones that left women legally voiceless and financially trapped. These
I was financially trapped, guys. I had to depend on a man to pay my bills. And while there is risk associated with that, I'll acknowledge that. But I just love how women spin this, guys. You know, this is like a woman cooking for you your entire life, okay? You know, she's let's just say you're married and she's she makes your food for you or something. You work, you're the breadwinner, she provides food for you. And this is a guy, like the equivalent of a man saying, I'm domestically trapped, guys, because if she leaves, I won't be able to vacuum my own house and I'll have to make my own food. Financially trapped. I mean, I do understand where they're coming from, especially if they had like an inability to get jobs the same as men. I just find it funny, guys. Financially trapped. Oh, he was emotionally mean to me. This language I just find to be hilarious.
Reforms aligned with natural law and biblical principles of justice, not oriented towards social upheaval. Now, I want to be clear that my positions are not to shove religion down your throat, nor are they to put me on some moral high ground. But it's also important to at least acknowledge that when we removed religion, we had to replace it with something. The erosion of Christianity didn't just impact our churches. It impacted cultural values that held our society together, and furthermore, opened the door in which this revolution could just walk right through. First wave feminists, for the most part, did not seek to erase the differences between men and women. They weren't trying to become men or mock men. Instead, they emphasized complementary roles, that women had a moral and nurturing influence that was necessary to shape society, educate children, and contribute to public life. They believed in the distinct power of womanhood, not in its denial or androgynous dilution. This wave of feminism still upheld marriage, motherhood, and virtue as good and central to a woman's role. At this time, there was no cult of the self. Unlike modern feminism that says, you do you, early feminists operated under a framework of duty, sacrifice, and service, especially in how women should use their influence. They weren't trying to free women from the family or smash the patriarchy. Their goal was often to improve society by improving the conditions of women within their God-given roles. There was no obsession with liberation from responsibility, but a very deep sense of moral obligation.
I mean, here's the thing, okay? If you're talking about leaving men in marriages because supposedly the man was evil, which again, I understand did happen, right? And still does happen to this day. But, you know, if your argument is like, oh, I'm not trying to get rid of my responsibilities, I'm still trying to do my supposedly God-given role, but the end result of what you're pushing for is the mass number of women abandoning their marriages because they feel like it and having the ability to vote without actually contributing to society, at least in the same way that men did back then. Like, what's happened here is you can say, oh, well, I'm not pushing for these sorts of things. Okay, fantastic. But the changes actually did have very negative consequences. You know what I mean? Like these people, they love to try and word things super nicely, but I don't really care if someone says to me, hey, listen, I did X action because of Y reason, but it doesn't align, then I simply don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, these people can say that they did something for X reason, all that they want, but at the end of the day, it didn't have the result that they anticipated, okay? You know, you can say, well, we need to be able to get women out of these terrible marriages, which sounds good on the surface, but the end result is you just have a bunch of women who are leaving their marriages because they feel like it and because they can, for example, extract resources from a man. So again, guys, saying one thing, but the result is completely another.
But then it was hijacked. But again, it wasn't born corrupt. As I'm sure you've heard before, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There came a point where the first wave of feminism was co-opted by occult forces, and this occurred in the early 20th century. Theosophy, goddess worship, and spiritual rebellion started to creep in. Names like Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey replaced the moral language of justice with esoteric visions of power. Margaret Sanger, who championed birth control, was very much influenced by these occult ideas. What began as a call for fairness became a seedbed for revolt. And this brings us to the second wave, otherwise known as the Great Inversion. If the first wave sought integration, this second wave demanded demolition. It no longer wanted to refine society. It wanted to reimagine it. The family, gender roles, Christianity, and the very essence of womanhood. You were told that you were more than just a mother. You were told you needed to be free, that love was a trap, that your womb was a burden, that the home was a cage and the man beside you was your oppressor. But what if I told you these ideas didn't come from nowhere? That they were planted, seeded, and sold, spun by women who themselves were serving a much bigger agenda. Let's take a look at 3 women whose ideas specifically shaped the modern version of womanhood, and ask the question that no one seems to ever ask: what did their version of freedom actually cost us? Betty Friedan lit the match. In her best-selling book, The Feminine Mystique, she calls the suburban housewife's role a comfortable concentration camp. She said that domestic life was a very slow death, that motherhood was an intellectual prison, and that women didn't even realize how miserable they were. So
This just reminds me of those, those older women that you see on TikTok. Okay, they're like 35, they're divorced, and then they're trying to convince other women that they're miserable in their marriages and they need to divorce their husbands. It always ends up looking the same. It always just ends up looking like women trying to sabotage other women. And you know what? A lot of the time it actually works, guys. Right? This is why having women, like, if you're a dude and you're married, I don't care if it's for 30 years, I don't care if it's for 5 years or whatever. You know, if your woman has these sorts of women around her who are actively trying to sabotage them, that is actually a very, very large threat to your marriage or your relationship. Okay, I just find it funny how even back then, guys, it's just the same crap, right? It's always like the bitter old women trying to sabotage the marriages and relationships of the younger women. And women can attest to this as well. You know, if you go out there and you speak to women and you ask them, hey, you know, have you had previous friends or women who you thought were your friends who were just trying to sabotage your relationship? You know, have you ever experienced women out there who are trying to actively steal your husband or trying to make you divorce him, trying to make you view him as a bad person? And oftentimes the answer to that question is yes, guys. You know, there are a great many women who that's kind of their strategy in life, right? That's really who they end up becoming. They end up becoming this bitter older person who is just trying to make everybody as miserable as they are. It's crazy. It really is.
Women left the home, not always because they wanted to, but because they were told that they're wasting their potential.
Okay. I have to pause it once again really quickly here. This kind of stuff to me is just not good enough. Okay, like if you're a woman and you're in a marriage, let's just say you're like a 30-year-old woman. Okay, you're in a marriage, you've been married for a few years now. Okay, and you sit there and you say to me, "Oh, I regret leaving my marriage because I was convinced that I had to leave." No, you weren't. Okay, you allowed yourself to be convinced. Like, let's stop making excuses for these women who ruin their marriages and ruin their families. Oh, I was told that I was wasting my potential, so therefore I'm the victim after I ruined my family and abandoned my marriage. It doesn't work like that, guys. You know, you remember back in school, okay, even in school, right, when we were young children, you didn't have the ability to go, oh, well, yeah, I hit this other kid over the head, but that's because Tommy told me to. You know, the teacher would sit there and the teacher would lecture you, right? Because it's about personal responsibility and it's about the choice that you made. But even women in their 30s, guys, we're still running this defense for women who ruin their families and ruin their marriages. Is that not just hilarious? Am I the only one who finds this just very funny? You know, oh, guys, don't worry. Your wife left you, but she was told that she was wasting her potential, so it's not her fault. Yes, it is. Okay, these women allow themselves to be convinced. Hell, a lot of them don't even require any convincing at all, man. They just want to go back out there, have their fun, take the man's resources, and that's the end of the story. This defense for women has just got to stop, man. It makes it look so stupid, you know? Like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to believe that. Hilarious.
Their potential. Friedan redefined value as visibility. Fulfillment became synonymous with professional status. Homemaking, once revered, was now reframed as shameful. So she offered a new purpose. Careerism. She told women to leave the kitchen and enter the boardroom. And again, not because they all wanted to, but because supposedly by staying at home, they were just wasting away. And many women who followed this pathway are now stuck asking themselves, why do I have a resume full of achievements, but feel like something more sacred is missing? Or
No. I think the question of what they actually end up asking themselves for a lot of these women, like these 35-year-old career womanists and stuff, they get to 35 and they're not like, wow, I feel so unfulfilled. You know what a lot of them realize instead? They're like, wait a minute, I don't really want to be working until I'm like 70, 75. Okay? Like they don't actually have this epiphany moment where they realize, oh, I wish to be a mother. Some of them do for sure. A lot of them do regret it. But the point I'm making is the real kick in the the private region, shall I say, for these women is that they actually need the man because they don't want to continue working. Okay? Like the reality is that they need somebody to pay their bills because they don't want to do it anymore. A lot of these women are not supposed to be mothers, man. Like, you can't make them into the mother of your children. Hell, they're not even going to treat the children correctly half the time. Okay? Like, some of these women are just so downright awful. But the reason they come to this conclusion is, yeah, a portion of it's biological clock and they want to be a mother, but they don't really actually want to be a mother. A lot of the big part of the issue for them is they need a man to look after them because they don't want to go to work every day. They're not getting the same satisfaction from their work as a man might be, for example. Okay, again, a lot of this crap comes out of necessity, not because, they've had their epiphany and now they want to return to their God-given role. Some of them, that is the case, but a lot of it is just straight up, I just want to be sitting at home doing nothing, and I want my man to pay the bills for me so that I don't have to work all day, every single day until I'm 75.
They resent the men in their lives for the fact that they feel the burden of trying to be everything, yet feeling almost nothing. But Gloria Steinem took it even further. She told women that true power came from detachment, emotional, sexual, and spiritual. Marriage, optional. Children, inconvenient. Abortion, empowerment. And men, oppressors. She famously said that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Look at this woman's face, man. Like, this is, and I'm not saying that like, oh, this woman's old. Okay, we're all gonna get old. We all get older, right? Some of you watching, we're already at the older age. I'm not making fun of this woman's face because she's an older lady or anything like that. It's just like, you look in her face and it's just soulless at a certain point. They're just not happy people. Whenever I see these like pioneers of womanism, or these women trying to convince other women how to conduct their lives, I look in their face and I never see like contentment. I never see fulfillment, dare I say happiness. I always see someone who just looks like the soul has just completely evaporated. It's exactly what you would expect.
And what's never discussed is her work in the CIA, or with the CIA, spending her time shaping youth movements and influencing the overall culture. And this is where it gets really sketchy, right? Because then you start to realize, hey, maybe it wasn't actually, the women pulling the strings behind the scene. Maybe it was governmental involvement, right? Maybe the government wanted to screw over women. Maybe they wanted to double their taxpayer base, for example. And that's where the real questions are, right? Because essentially, I personally think a lot of these women, again, this was fully their decision, but this is something that didn't benefit them in the end. Like you look at where women have ended up, and this is something that certainly has not improved their lives. And it makes you question, hey, is there anyone else that's been benefiting from this nonsense? And the answer is yes. And the answer is it's the government. Okay. Again, the government is allowed to. Now we have a situation where you have to have two people actively contributing towards the bills to even make anything, go forward in life. Like a lot of people, modern day Westerners, for example, they're not having children. And the reason for that, or at least a large part of it, is because they simply can't economically provide for the kids. A lot of people these days, they don't own their home. They can't own their home. They can't even get anywhere close to it. And they're taxed out of the damn eyeballs still, So asking the real questions there. is not a conspiracy. Okay, she admitted this.
Gloria, at the festival, you worked for the Independent Research Service.
That's right.
Well, exactly when did your own association with the CIA start, and in what fashion? Did they come to you, or did you go to them?
In 1958, when I came home from India, I discussed with student leaders, past and present, many of them active with the National Student Association.
She didn't liberate women, she redirected them out of the home and into the system, and not towards joy, but towards isolation disguised as independence. And then came Firestone, who indeed took an aim at biology itself. In the dialectic of sex, she declared that pregnancy, barbaric, and the family unit, a form of tyranny. Her vision, ultimately, was quite chilling. Reproduction without women, families without fathers, and bodies without boundaries. Firestone had no goals of equality. She wanted to erase womanhood entirely, to remove pregnancy from the body, to completely abolish the nuclear family, to replace biology with technology. She believed that the only way to be free was to completely escape the female form in itself. And unfortunately, it worked. These ideas fractured women from their own biology. Motherhood was no longer sacred. Sexual restraint or boundaries was seen as a weakness. Virtue became oppression. And the feminine became a costume. If you were told that pain meant oppression, that childbirth was chains, that nurturing or being nurturing is so outdated, you were absorbing Firestone's gospel. I hope by now you can start to see how second wave feminism fused cultural Marxism with spiritual rebellion. It glamorized the self and diminished responsibility.
And just by the way, these sorts of attributes are exactly why, at least a large part, in why men don't want to date these women. You know, we see a lot of women out there these days who are saying things like, okay, I can hook up with men, I can get attention from men, you know, I can have situationships with men, but none of the men actually want to have a relationship with me. Where are all of the good men? Okay. And the answer to that is these men don't want to date these women. Okay. Again, these women might be fantastic fun for 3 nights. Okay. And then when you try and speak to them, they're horrible people. You know, they're not pleasant to be around. They're not feminine. A lot of them have just straight up terrible personalities. They have addictions. They have mental problems. For lack of a better word, guys, they're just damaged, essentially. You know, which is really sad stuff. But again, you remove all of the femininity and you start to become a masculine person. And the result of that is just guys are not going to want to deal with you. You're going to be left with, okay, dudes who are going to be players and they're going to have fun with you and then bounce, or guys who are just going to dip entirely, whether that be because they're treated like crap or because they're invisible. I mean, it doesn't particularly matter at the end of the day. This is just, it's essentially man repellent, you know, and you can hear it in the way that a lot of these women speak. Again, you try and have conversations with them, guys, and it's like, it's unpleasant. You know, which is crazy, right? It's really crazy to think about the fact that, for example, men would rather talk to, like, I'm pretty sure I saw Twitter or Grok or whatever it is come out with, X or whatever, come out with like a waifu thing that you could talk to, and it was your girlfriend or something, and it got the most popular ratings, or, you know, tons of people downloaded it on the App Store. And it's really sad to think that literally a lot of these modern women are so undesirable that men would rather talk to like an AI chatbot of a woman because they find it to be more feminine and more pleasant. Like, women are quite literally, guys, like, put this in perspective. I've said this before. Women are losing to video games. They are losing to women that don't even exist, which is honestly, it's honestly impressive how difficult that is to do, because a lot of guys, they love women. You know, they find them attractive. They love to be around feminine women. But, you know, you take away the femininity and guys they just walk away, man. It's really simple.
Feminist text praised witchcraft, sexual liberation as empowerment, abortion as a right instead of a moral tragedy, pornography, hookup culture, and promiscuity as markers of freedom, not even disclosing that the things that women did not want to be valued for or degraded down into was indeed the value that now women had to lead with. Steinem herself endorsed feminist occultism. What began as a movement for equality had become a full-blown ideological inversion. This was and is a deliberate psychological operation to destroy modesty, shame, and sexual restraint, especially in young women. By encouraging women to divorce, work, and raise children independently, second-wave feminism replaced the husband with the state. Government.
I mean, let's go back to the first wave that this woman was talking about, right? The first wave allowed this to happen. right? It put in place the legal ability for women to do this, and this is exactly what I was talking about. You know, is like you open up, you say, okay, I'm going to do this for one reason, but the end result is completely the opposite. And it's very foreseeable, by the way, right? Anyone who uses a bit of common sense is going to understand that, hey, if you take away the legal ramifications for women destroying their families and you incentivize them to do so, it doesn't really matter what your intentions are because it is going to happen. You know, like people are obviously going to use the system. Hell, you know, there's women these days, guys, who literally have children, become single mothers because they know that they are going to get financial resources from the government for doing so, or from the man. You know, like this is very, very deliberate. Anyone with a bit of common sense is going to tell you that this was going to be the result. But, you know, here we are. But guys, I think we might leave today's video there. Okay, I don't even want to think about feminism anymore. So guys, don't forget to drop your comments. Make sure you take care of yourselves, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.